Welcome back. Now, former President Jacob Zuma met with the ANC's Top-Six officials virtually yesterday. Now, they discussed Zuma's refusal to appear before the State Capture Commission chaired by Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. The Constitutional Court is also involved after Zuma remained resolute in his defiance of a court order to appear before the Commission last month. Now, there's also no confirmation at this stage on whether Zuma actually filed his responding affidavit to the Commission, which was due yesterday. Meanwhile, Zondo yesterday expressed his concern at attacks on key witnesses, and that was after a witness survived being shot at the weekend, and the Hawks are also investigating that incident. So to discuss these and other issues, we're joined by political analyst Sanusha Naidu. Sanusha, good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina, and thank you again for having me on your show.
So if you could be a virtual fly on the wall, what do you think was discussed yesterday?
I think even the fly would have been a bit confused on the wall, considering that after meeting for several hours from 10:30 to around about 5 or thereabouts, you come up with one statement or one sentence and to say it was a nice meeting, it was reinvigorating and so forth. I'm not sure much was discussed, Sakina. I think what we probably can speculate about is that the former president, made a lot of spoke a lot at that meeting, made a lot of comments and laid down the case of him being victimized in terms of the dynamics and the contextual issues around the fact that he's being hauled before the Zondo Commission, that he feels that he has been unduly and unfairly judged in the court of public opinion and so forth. What I found very interesting about the question, or rather the statement or the briefing that the SG did yesterday, was to say that they're giving him time to get to explore and expand on the Bill of Rights. I mean, we all know we have these rights. It goes without saying. It's part of the Constitution. It's entrenched in the Constitution. These things, this idea or this argument or justification of allowing the former president more time to deliberate over the rights is just, in my opinion, another deflection strategy where he has the rights. He has already been exercising these rights by the fact that he refuses to acknowledge or even act on the Constitutional Court ruling. The fact of the matter is, yesterday was the final deadline, I think, for him to place or basically provide the affidavit to the case that's coming up on the 25th of March. All of these things suggest to me that he has these rights. He's been exercising these rights. So what more is it about this Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights, that he has to continue to deliberate with his lawyers about? Again, it's a strategy to deflect. It's a kind of a dummy strategy that just to say that we're affording him the kind of respect that he should deserve. And I think that's the bottom line here, that the former President Zuma feels very afflicted about the fact that he is being treated as if he is some kind of individual or just a normal Joe Blog on the street, but rather he should be afforded this kind of level of respect, and he's not getting it in terms of what's happening.
But as you say, Sanusha, the former president is already on record, speaking about the fact that he feels that he is being unfairly treated. So what exactly was the objective of this meeting with the top leadership of the African National Congress? What do you think this was about? Because in the end, it doesn't seem as though we've moved either way.
Yeah, I think, the one objective could be optics, to actually be seen to be doing something so that you create this image in the public arena that we are trying to engage with the former president. We're trying to basically negotiate with him around the idea that either way he could actually make the credibility of the ANC much more cohesive. And so appearing before the Zondo Commission or adhering to the Constitutional Court ruling is important on the one hand because it is the Constitution and the sacrosanct legal framework of the land, and on the other hand, it's about the credibility of the party. The problem here is that you've got a very obstinate former president who is not going anywhere, who is not going to budge on these things. This reminds me of the days before he was asked to resign or relieve himself of the position of state president. And so he took his time. There was a whole lot of back and forth. There was a whole lot of pushing and moving and maneuvering that had to take place. Eventually, it came to the threat that we're going to have a vote of no confidence, which moved the needle in the way that it did. So I think for the top six, it was the optics, it was the credibility. But I think at the back of their mind, they knew that this was just a kind of exercise in everything that did nothing.
An exercise in futility, to be exact. But even beyond the optics, as you say, it's easy to draw conclusions on what this says about the former president. But what does it say about the top six of the ANC and the ANC broadly speaking?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, what is very interesting is how much the top six can influence the former president. We do know that at last night's press briefing, it was actually Ace Magashule that spoke about the meeting and the nature of the meeting and the kind of camaraderie that the meeting produced. It wasn't really earth-shattering press briefing that everybody was expecting it to be. If indeed they were going to propose a compromise, it never came out. But what is important here is that it was the SG. It seemed to me that this was the faction of the RET that went in and said, we will take control, we'll talk about this, we'll try and push our kind of engagement with the president, appeal to him, etc. Well, they really didn't. I don't think they knew. They went to the meeting believing they're going to come out with anything tangible. So it's all about this idea of, let's go and let's be seen to be doing something. I think for the Cyril Ramaphosa faction, I'm not sure how muted they were in that meeting, or if they were there just because it was ceremonial to be there as the top six.
So, when you say that, Sanusha, I'm struggling a bit because when you say the fact that the SG in Ace Magashule comes out to address the meeting, surely it should have been him. I mean, who else would then address the media after a top six meeting? That doesn't necessarily have to be indicative of the balance of forces within the top six, does it?
Well, up until now, Sakina, what you've been having is a lot of the key issues around the NEC meetings, etc., and when it had to be presented in terms of the press briefing, it was quite interesting that it was the president that did that, Cyril Ramaphosa. And there are speculations as to why he took control or he decided to be the individual that will conduct and lead the press briefing. I think there's been this kind of challenge that has existed, or an undercurrent that has existed, that at times the true reflection of a meeting does not get through in terms of how Ace Magashule presents it. Technically, you are right. It is the SG that does this. But in previous times, and the precedent that has been set, we've seen this coming out from Cyril Ramaphosa. So again, if this is such an important meeting, it is a critical meeting for the former president to be able to adhere to the constitutional ruling and adhere to the way in which the constitutional issues are unfolding in terms of the Zondo Commission and the Zondo Commission itself appearing before it. I think then you would think that that Cyril Ramaphosa would take it on because it would be a much more important context. Unless, of course, this is a decision made that, okay, we divvy up this whole process, you do this, I do that. But again, the optics of the situation, the fact of the matter is, in previous times, it wasn't the SG on critical issues. And now we have to start thinking about some of these questions around how much of the latitude, the platitudes around what was conveyed to us from the meeting reflects what happened in the meeting. The vagueness of the press briefing last night, I think, suggests to us that it wasn't as what the media and others anticipated it would be. It was a nice meeting.
And that seems to be the operative word. But, we look at what's been happening at Nkandla over the past few weeks. You've had many visitors there, and these include the CIC of the EFF, Julius Malema. We saw Andile Mngxitama of BLF. We've seen the former SABC COO, Hlaudi Motsoeneng, among others, Dudu Myeni, former chairperson of SAA. It's just been a hive of activity at Nkandla. And notably, we also saw the police minister, Bheki Cele, and the National Commission of Police, Kehla Sithole, visiting Nkandla. So what should we make about that? Because it's another one of those where everybody's sitting wondering what actually was the objective. Why would they go and visit Nkandla? What exactly is going on here?
I think if you start to unpack it and disaggregate it, I mean, the EFF, I think, is quite an interesting one to have visited, have their tea party as well with the president, and of course look at it in a way in which whether they discussed any of these issues or whether it was just to go there for optics again, but also to be seen. In some way, I think Malema is very strategic, and so is the way in which the EFF had constructed that kind of visit to Nkandla, whether they wanted to be the power brokers or the ones that were basically able to change or shift the mind of the president. Whatever they discussed, I think, again, is very vague. The others that you mentioned that visited Nkandla, I think these are just people that have gone there to show their support for the former president. I don't think they were ever going to move the issue away from where it is. For them, it actually talks about the fact that this former president, he's a respected individual, he's an elder in the party, he needs to be shown the requisite respect and afforded the requisite rights, etc. Don't treat him as if he's anybody or somebody. And I think those other individuals that visited there, outside of the Minister of Police and others, but particularly those that came in as non-state ministers or individuals in the state, they actually went there probably to show support. Again, it's not necessarily something about have they had something a proposal in hand to present to the president, because by now we would have seen or heard some inkling of that. So I think for the EFF power broker to be seen as being a kind of unifier, a bridge builder, but of course it's also about the fact that there are questions being raised about what does this mean for EFF and the relationship the EFF and in particular Malema has with the current current factions in the ANC, and how that would actually work out in terms of the kinds of support that they get. We know that in Parliament you can see that. I mean, the EFF has said very clearly they're never going to support any proposal that deals with the public protector. So I think these are just optics, but it's also about the kind of support that gives the former president the kind of comfort to know that he holds an important or a particular sway around particular issues within the party. So it's quite interesting that all of these visits are happening in Nkandla, but again, it props up the former president in a way that he feels very much an esteemed elder that people are respecting.
Well, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Sanusha Naidu is a political analyst talking to us about former President Jacob Zuma, among other issues. So let's take a quick break before we bring you the news at 7.